Hey crafters, we have some sewing to do. I have a family wedding reception event coming up very shortly, and I want a dress for this event. Most of my wedding appropriate attire hadn't been worn for a long time, obviously. From the past couple years, we haven't been doing a lot of these kind of things. Honestly, I've given away quite a few wedding-ish outfits I had. A lot of them don't fit anymore. I kind of cleaned out that section of my closet, so just didn't feel like I had something that would quite fit this event. I think the event is not going to be formal, but it's also not going to be like completely casual. I think it's going to be kind of it's like a cocktail time of day, and I think people are going to look nice and kind of chic-ish, but not too dressy. So I did some online shopping, didn't find anything. Everything that I thought would kind of work was pretty expensive, and I just didn't feel like I would wear it very much again, so I kind of held off on that. Like, well, why don't I go to a thrift store? Hey, thrifting is a great way to find secondhand dresses and, nice garments because people don't wear them out. So that would have been really a great option, except most of my thrift stores don't have their dressing rooms open yet. That was a change made during the pandemic. I don't know when that's going to change back again, and I have to try stuff on and be able to return it if it doesn't fit. So unfortunately, the thrift store option didn't work for me right now, although normally that would be my go-to. Shopping, thrifting, not really working. I'm thinking, let's make something. We can do this, right? I think we can. So I'm thinking let's use a really basic pattern, one that I've used a million times, so I know that it fits me and I know that I can modify it as I want to. I'm sticking with something I know. I am going to be using some fabric that I don't usually work with. The fabric may be the tricky bit. We'll see. Can I make a wedding reception appropriate dress and not lose my sanity and get some decent results? And then I'm also hoping to pair that dress with some maybe thrifted or vintage or gifted accessories and make this whole look as low budget but still really fun and effective as I can. So we have a lot of challenges in today's project, but come on the sewing adventure with me. See what you think. Can you get behind the whole make your own dressy outfit idea? I don't know. Am I crazy? I might be crazy. Anyway, let's dive in. Let's see if we can do this. Let's have some fun with the process, and let's dive in. Well, you guys, if you recognize this pattern, that means you've probably watched maybe a couple of my other sewing videos, because yes, I have used this pattern so many times. It is a super basic pattern for dolman sleeved, kind of peasant style dress, elastic around the neck and sleeves. It's a pullover style, so you don't have to use buttons or zippers. You could just make it as a straight dress. You could also make it with the gathered tiers of fabric. I've done a lot of different variations of this thing. Let's see. I think with this one, I made my cottagecore flannel dress, and I basically extended the skirt into just a really long kind of peasant-y dress. That was a fun project. Oh, and last year I did basically this style dress, but out of gingham, and I used a different color for the sleeves and the bodice and then each tier of the dress, so it's basically rainbow gingham. That was a fun project. And then I think I also used it, oh yeah, for my spring prairie dress, I used the top of the bodice as the same, and then instead of doing the tiered skirt, I just made a full skirt, which I stitched to there. So I have used and love this pattern. I love how basic it is. I love how it works. It always works. Now that I've kind of figured out the modifications I like with this one. And hey, you know the rule. If the pattern fits, make it in as many variations as humanly possible. So I need a basic dress. I need something that is very likely to work and be relatively efficient in the creation of this dress. So we're definitely diving back in on this guy today. You can tell the fabric I'm using, oh my goodness, kind of like an apricot satiny material. It is kind of matte on one side, shiny on the other. It is a little bit sheer. I'm a little bit worried about that. I think I may have to wear a slip under this, but I do love that it is kind of drapey. This dress is super basic. If you use fabric that is kind of stiff and puffy, you're going to get kind of a puffier look, kind of more peasant style dress. I'm hoping that with this drapier fabric, it's going to hang a little bit closer to the body, be a little bit drapier. I don't usually work with shiny fabric that's slippery because that can be a pain. Hopefully it'll be okay. I think it could be really pretty. I don't know. We'll see. I got this as a remnant, and that was kind of the best choice that was there. So we're going to try it. We're going to tackle it. How are we going to do this? I think we're going to basically do this dress. The super basic shift. You can add elastic around the waist. You could belt it if you want. I'm probably going to do a few modifications to this, but I think we're sticking pretty close to this one. I may lengthen it a little bit. I may shorten the sleeves a little bit. We'll see. That's the mojo we're going for. Let's see what we got to do. As you can see, cutting this thing out is pretty basic. You have the front of the dress, the back of the dress, and the sleeves. I like that kind of a project. That sounds right up my alley. All right, so they are showing us directions for both dresses, but of course we're sticking with the simpler shift dress, so we gotta basically sew the front and the back together. That's cool. Then we gotta sew our sleeves together. They're telling me to add the elastic. I think I'm gonna wait on that because I'm not exactly sure what sleeve length I want. I wanna be able to try this on first. And then, hey, you sew the sleeves to the bodice. With this pattern, since it's a dolman sleeve, the top of the sleeve basically becomes the shoulder of the dress. So, yeah, it's kind of cool. Got our sleeves on there. And then, here's where I'm going to diverge a little bit from the pattern. The pattern asks you to roll a really tiny little hem at the top of the dress, which is, this is basically going to be the neckline and the shoulder line here. And then use that little tube that you've made for the elastic. Now, in the past when I've done that, I've kind of not loved how fiddly that was. It was kind of a pain to roll the tiny little hem. And I also realized using fabric from the bodice as the tube making fabric also kind of raised the underarm area a little bit, and I didn't totally love that. So I actually used single fold bias tape actually and stitched that into the neckline, used that little bit of fabric as the tube for the elastic. That is super easy to sew on, a super basic process that I actually enjoy doing, strangely enough. But I gotta say, the bias tape can be kind of rough and a little bit bulky at the top of the dress. It definitely makes the neckline stick out a little bit. It's a little bit rough against your skin. So I think what I'm gonna do is basically cut some really long, thin strips and make my own bias tape out of this fabric. And then I'll kind of get the best of both worlds with the neckline. I'll still get the garment sitting like under the arms and stuff the way I like it, but then I'm hopefully also gonna have like a smooth, lightweight tube of fabric around the top for that elastic. Don't worry, I'll show you what I'm talking about as we go, but I have to complicate things. It's what I do. I always do. Oh, and then of course, we got some elastic going in. That's cool. Oh yeah, they're reminding us that we could use actually bias tape. They're suggesting here to make a little channel for elastic at the waist. I am probably going to end up doing that. Again, I may use my own homemade bias tape out of this slippery fabric just so it moves with the fabric a little better than a stiffer bias tape might. Blah, blah, blah. Put elastic in, and then you got to hem the dress. The rest of this is all stuff for that gathered tier dress. So we don't have that many instructions to follow. So that sounds like the perfect kind of project here. Here it is. Imagine this. In this, maybe a tiny bit longer. Maybe we'll make a belt. We'll see. I think it's gonna work. All right, time to cut out pieces. And then we gotta start doing a little basic construction on the dress and the sleeves. And let's get going. Well, we got the side seams sewn up. We got the sleeves sewn up. Wow. I gotta say, yes, indeed, this fabric is, in fact, a giant pain in the butt. It's not stretchy, but it's so drapey and kind of slippery, so you bump it, you touch it at all, and it, like, pulls and kind of drapes. When I cut out the pieces, I think I didn't have the fabric folded completely straight, you know, for cutting out the pieces on the fold. And man, yeah, some of the pieces turned out kind of wonky. I had to try to trim them again. This fabric, of course, frays like crazy. So I kind of did like a zigzag stitch over the edges, kind of in lieu of like serging, just to keep it from disintegrating. I was using some really sharp needles to try to help my machine deal with the fabric. So, yeah. Top tip, if you're in a hurry, this is probably not the best stuff. But, you know what? We kind of knew it would be a pain. Now we're going to keep on going. All right, let's see what we've got to do next. Okay, looks like next up, we've got to sew the sleeves to the bodice. And they tell us to sew it a couple times to reinforce it. Yep, good idea. And then we'll need to be making that bias tape to go around the neckline and inserting elastic. Let's tackle those sleeves first. All right, well, we have some sleeves, and this dress is kind of looking like an angel costume from a nativity play. I'm sure we're on the right track. All right, well, next up, they're telling us to roll the top edge of the dress into a tube for elastic. And of course, I like to complicate things. So instead of doing that, I'm going to be sewing on a strip of fabric, just like single fold bias tape, all around the top of the neckline. And then I'll use that tube that I create to insert some elastic, or I'll insert elastic into that tube. Yeah. So I normally use just packaged bias tape, but today I'm kind of trying to make my own. I tried two different methods. One is this handy dandy bias tape maker from my mom. Thanks, Mom. This is kind of cool. As you pull a strip of fabric through, it kind of folds it to the way it needs to go, and then you can iron it. If this fabric was a little less drapey and dreadful, I think this would have looked a lot neater. But this is pretty cool. I gotta say, this bias tape is thicker than I want for around the neck. I don't have a maker for the thinner bias tape, so put that on my list. I think I'm gonna use this though, to make possibly like a casing at waist level, so that I could insert elastic around the waist on the inside. So hey, that's cool. And then I wanted some really thin tape to go around the neckline. So I cut, again, another really thin strip. This one, I basically just copied some single fold bias tape that I have, and it ended up using about 1 inch of fabric, and then the edges get folded in to about the middle, and then I ironed it down. Each of these little folded edges are about 1/4 inch, and then you fold them all both in like that and iron it down. Now, of course, the super discerning sewer people out there are going to notice that no, I didn't actually cut these strips on the bias, which I should have, you know. Instead of cutting strips that go with the selvage of the fabric, there's this cool way that I don't know how to do of cutting strips of fabric at the diagonal, which supposedly stretches and moves a little better. I didn't do that. A, because I am a little lazy, and B, because it was a pain in the neck to even cut a symmetrical strip out of this fabric. I'll tell you what, I had to use like the selvage as my only straight edge, and then measure in carefully from that and cut out a strip as carefully as I could, and it's still a little wonky. So that's good enough for now. Let's save this one for later. Now I'm going to pin this all around the top of the neckline. I'm going to start by pinning it to the outside of the, outside of the dress. I got to turn this right side out. Pin it all the way around. Stitch in the ditch. And then I'll fold over the rest to cover the raw edge. If you've never done single fold bias tape and you're like, wait, what are you saying? Are you speaking another language? Just look up a video on single fold bias tape. Seriously, just check it out on YouTube. It's some easy stuff once you see how it works. And then you'll kind of see exactly what I'm doing here. But yeah, I'll pin this. Gonna unwrap it a little bit. All the way around the top of the neckline. All the way around. And then, wow, this does not want to stay. Stay, I say. There we go. So I'll pin this all the way around. I think I'll use my bias tape clips. Those are handy. And then once this is going all the way around, I will then use this handy dandy little fold line, or the ditch, and I'll stitch in that ditch, basically stitching 1/4 inch or so from the edge. And then I'll have this extra flappy bit of my bias tape to fold over the raw edge. Oops, it'll fold over the raw edge. It will, promise you. And then finish the edge nicely from the outside and the inside. Let me just kind of show you what I'm talking about. Hey everybody, it is a new day, and I have sewn the bias tape all around the neckline, and I gotta say, that was kind of nightmarish, honestly. Like, oh dear. It took about, I don't know, twice as long, like 3 times as long as it would have with like a less difficult fabric. I don't know. My machine and I did not enjoy this process. I would definitely recommend using like a wider strip of fabric for your bias tape if you're going to do this with difficult fabric and you're a learner like me, because this was really fiddly, and I'm really hoping this tube that I created, I did leave a little gap. I'm hoping this tube is going to be big enough to fit the elastic that I have. I don't know. Also, don't look too close at the stitching. For some reason, my machine got wonky tension just periodically around the neckline, and like I stopped and I cut out some of the stitches and I tried fixing the tension. I did on test fabric, it was fine, and then I started sewing this and it got weird in places, and I don't know why. I even tried winding a new bobbin, and then that bobbin started jamming my machine. So yeah. Anyway, fun times. It's not perfect, but hopefully no one's going to be able to see, because we're going to be putting in some elastic. I've got my little bodkin here. You could use a safety pin or a bobby pin, but this tube, this channel that we've created is really narrow, and I'm hoping this will work. So I'm going to use the little gap that I left in my stitching. So I got a little gap here. I'm going to insert the elastic all the way around, and then that will scrunch the neck and the shoulders in to create that peasant top. So we're going to switch over to time lapse, and I'm going to get to elasticizing. Here we go. Okay, guys, I think this neckline is working. I tried on the dress and tried to adjust like how wide I wanted this neckline to be, and then I marked the elastic and very messily sewed the ends together with an overlap. And now I'm going to kind of scooch that back under the little flap of fabric, and then I'll stitch the rest closed, and then we'll have a neckline, which is super exciting. Next project, we're going to do a really similar process on the sleeves, but instead of sewing bias tape to this, I am just going to roll a little tube of this fabric. I think I'm going to hem under maybe like 1/2 inch, and then roll that fabric again to make a tube. It's big enough for my elastic. I can't do this with one hand. I'll show you in a second. But I'll make a little tube out of this fabric and insert elastic. I'm actually keeping the sleeves the original length, so I like that. And then once I have a little tube of fabric rolled for at the edge of each sleeve, I'll use similar process that I did on the neckline and insert elastic to make these a little gathery, stretchy, and kind of peasant sleevey. Okay guys, this is actually kind of looking like a dress. I will say this is taking a long time, but it looks like a dress. You can tell I've got this kind of crazy mess over here. What's with the cutting board? What's with all the pins? Good question. Okay, as you can tell, I got the elastic in the sleeves. Put in the elastic, sewed the ends together, and closed the tube for the elastic. That's working pretty well. Next, I want to sew some of this homemade bias tape that I made, kind of the wider stuff, to kind of the high waistline of the dress. And I'm going to stitch very close to the edge on each side and leave a tube. And then I'm going to put elastic into that, which will hopefully gather kind of a high waistline on the dress. And yeah, it looks kind of wonky. Measuring a straightish line on this fabric was very exciting. I tried the dress on inside out, and then I marked kind of just like on myself where my high waistline felt like it would be. And then I used a ruler and kind of tried to straighten the fabric. Ugh, it's very unstraightened right now. Tried to straighten the fabric and then used my pen and just drew a line all the way across on the front and the back, and then I used that line to kind of line up my bias tape. Yeah, it's probably a little wonky. I also used a ruler and kind of used like my underarm seam and tried to measure down and under like about the same amount on each side, just to double check that I had marked evenly my waist estimate. So I kind of, measured on myself, but then I also tried to use a ruler on some fixed points of this dress to just try to see if I could get that waistline straight. They do have markings on the pattern, which you could use as well, but I was worried that would not work on me, so I did the hard way, I guess. I don't know. Oh yeah, and how do you pin this thing going around the front and the back without pinning straight through? That's where the cutting board comes in handy. I put that inside the dress and tried to pin against that. Yeah, it took a while. Oh yeah, and then I tried to overlap the edges, kind of folded the top edge over to try to finish that. I'm going to try to leave a little gap in the sewing on one edge as I stitch all the way around. Leave a little gap on one edge so I can insert elastic with my bodkin. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna go do that. Wish me luck. Okay, well, we've got that tube sewn on around the waist. For the elastic, I left a little gap right here, and the rest is a tube. So use my bodkin, use the elastic, just like we did for the neck. But oh man, that was a joyful process as one would expect. I mean, my machine started skipping stitches, and then I was stopped, tried to figure it out.
I don't know what it was. I changed the bobbin, I changed the needle, and then things started jamming and skipping stitches, so I don't even know what was up with that. Maybe I just need to buy more needles? I don't know. I thought I was using sharper needles, but finally changed to a third needle, and it worked. Thankfully. It's not pretty. I still have some skipped stitches. Wait, what the heck, man? I don't know. Maybe it's just too slippery? Ah, I don't know. I got a lot to learn, and I think my machine needs to be serviced, and I probably need to buy some new needles and new bobbins. Oy vey, you guys, but it's okay. We're getting really close. I think this is gonna work. Our next step is to hem the dress, which I think I might do first before I put the elastic in, just because I might have to square up the hem a little bit, because it's a mess. So I'm gonna possibly hang this up for a little bit and see if that helps me judge the hem, work on the hem, and then insert the elastic, and I think we're almost there, you guys. Well, you guys, at long last, we do have a dress. And yes, I have tried it on. I've been experimenting with this, and I think this is going to be great. I think it's going to be comfy. I think it's going to be kind of the right amount of special, but hopefully not too over the top. And I think this is going to be good. Did she take about twice as long as I thought she would? Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. I gotta say, I'm super grateful I didn't try a more difficult pattern, because that would have been too much for me, especially with using a fabric that I was not good at using. So keep it basic. If you're going to use a slipperier, more challenging fabric to work with, give yourself a little more time, give yourself a little grace. It might get a little crazy. Yeah, don't look too closely. Yeah, don't look too closely at some of these seams. Thread tension issues were like all over the place, and I'm still learning about what causes all of those. I was troubleshooting as much as I could, but I also want to let you know that yes, indeed, I wanted to like throw in the towel. A couple times I went, why didn't I just buy a dress? Oh man. So if you're at that point and you just want to buy a dress, I want to let you know. I support you in that. If you need to just buy the dress, okay? If you're okay with taking a little more time and having some more chaos in your life and a learning process, then you can make the dress. And that's good too. I think this is going to be really rewarding to wear, but yeah, it's always a journey. Oh man. I'm going to look through some of my accessories to see how I want to style this. I'm going to try to keep things simple and only use things that I thrifted, was gifted, or made for my accessories. So I think tomorrow I'll try to show you what that looks like, and I'll see you then. Okay, you guys, I've been working on styling this dress, and I gotta say, there's a lot of potential with this really basic peasant dress style. Seems like you could take it a lot of different directions, so that's definitely a plus for this pattern. I did have some goals though. I definitely wanted to push this one a little farther away from like the bridesmaid homemade bridesmaid dress from like the 80s vibe. I kind of feel like that might be where this fabric actually came from. So I wanted to go a different direction. And I had a few ideas. I mean, one thought was, to bring in some of my vintage jewelry, which I don't get to wear very much. Let me see if I can focus a little bit more. Ooh, yeah. This one's kind of a fun one. I do love the roses. Let me show you what that one looked like. Okay, so the colors are great. I actually like the length. The length is pretty short. Like a lot of 50s costume jewelry is a pretty short length, almost like a choker length. And this one would be pretty short. It does fit within the neckline, and I like it. The only thing is, there's a lot of satin right here. Like it's a lot of fabric gathered and just kind of it's a lot of shiny satin, especially in kind of the boobage area for me. And I'm like, I don't love that. It's a little much on me. And I was kind of thinking, what if we find a necklace that's a little longer that could kind of break this up just a little bit? Let me show you what I came up with. Okay, I'm really liking this longer length necklace quite a bit. This is a vintage one that my sister thrifted or I thrifted. It's like gold-ish with like plastic beads, maybe kind of like 60s, 70s. I'm not totally sure, but it definitely helps break up the satin a little bit, and it definitely takes it away from like the bridesmaid area. And I like the gold toning down the peach. And then I'm working my next suggestion off of a great idea from my mom. She was saying, well, why don't make the theme a little bit beachy, a little bit summery? And brilliant idea, Mom. So I think we're going to bring in this bracelet. This was a gift from my aunt, and I don't get to wear it that often because it's just kind of jingly, and it's really just fun and dressy. So, yes, that I think will be fun with the vintage necklace. And then I may bring in these little pearl studs from my grandma. I'm seeing my grandma, my aunt, and my sister at this event. So, bringing in some of these pieces could be really, really fun. Okay, last but not least, the bag dilemma. I don't know. This one's pretty great. This is a vintage bag I thrifted years ago. It does have that gold chain. We've got some gold chain happening. It has like peach, I think, white and peach weave. Okay, this could be amazing. Only problem is I have to take everything out of my wallet and only pack like my driver's license and like, you know, insurance cards and stuff. This barely fits my phone. So it's amazing. But it's going to take a little extra work. Or I thrifted this. Oh my gosh. Gorgeous bag some time ago. And I am very grateful to have found this. Thank you to whoever donated it. It's like the perfect basket bag. So either one might work well with this dress. We'll see. All right, last up, you guys, I think I'm going to pair this with some gold shoes. I had some nude heels that I was really thinking of wearing, but I don't know. I kind of feel like they were a little anticlimactic, like needed some gold, needed some sparkle down here just a bit. If I had some gold sandals, I would definitely wear those, but at the moment I don't. So those are my choices, you guys. I think these are going to be good options. I'll have to show you the day of exactly how I decide to do this, what bag do I choose, and what it all looks like. In the meantime, you guys, this is a great time for you to hit that like button if you get behind making your own clothes for a special event, even if there's some chaos, or, buying your own and you had fun watching me do it. That's cool too. And consider subscribing for more fun and crazy stuff from Partners in Craft. Lots of upcycles, lots of tie-dye, lots of dressmaking projects coming up soon, which I'm so excited about. Okay, I'll show you guys what this all looks like the night of the event.